We've got a score to settle with that son of a bitch.
Devil May Cry.
What's up guys, my name is RBG and we are back with more coverage on Devil May Cry 5, and we have some pretty interesting news coming down the pike. Not exactly huge news, but it's something that's been in conversation since DMC5's announcement. It's definitely something I've been harping on in all my more recent videos and I plan to elaborate more on today. But before we get into the gist of this discussion, I'd like to remind you that this upload is sponsored by Molno. Since you guys have supported this channel, I've linked up with Molno to give you their brand new gaming mouse. It features a high FPS rate, 7 different switches such as the back and forward button, an adjustable DPI, micro switches backed with LED lights, and much more. The shipping and handling averages around $5 depending on your location. The link will be in the description box below, so make sure you jump on it while the offer lasts. But getting back to the matter at hand, one of the most asked about questions in the wake of DMC5's announcement was where exactly does it take place in the Devil May Cry chronology? And a lot of viewers scratch their heads when I ask this question and say, I thought the director said that this game takes place several years after part 4. And to that I always say, yes, that was obvious given the game's aesthetic and events. We wouldn't see Nero repping the Devil May Cry brand or sporting a different arm if this game didn't take place after part 4. So that's where part 2 comes into the equation. Because unbeknownst to many, this particular entry might seem like it takes place before DMC4, especially given its number, but in actuality, it just so happens to be at the tail end of the series timeline. And this information has brought on a smorgasbord of confusion, which is totally understandable because as I said, there wasn't any incentive for fans to think hard about it. It's called freaking Devil May Cry 2. But those of us who are in the know can't deny the fact that DMC2's place in the timeline doesn't make a lot of sense. Not to mention that some fans are trying to erase the title out of their memory since it wasn't well received. It was unpolished, wanting of more invigoration, and Dante's charismatic vernacular was sacrificed for a more muted personality. Elements like this gave us the preconceived notion that maybe placing the title at the end of the timeline was for the best, and it seemed like we'd never get that proper conclusion we so badly wanted. That's until yesterday morning we got a pretty awesome tweet via a Twitter page called DMC5 Info. And this tweet shook the blogosphere pretty hard because it confirmed that DMC5 takes place after DMC2 chronologically. It was only a day prior on Sunday, August 26th, that we got word that a French outlet called ActuGaming.net claimed that the developers confirmed that the game would indeed be set after part 2. To make sure that this site wasn't just blowing smoke up our asses, DMC5 Info tweeted at producer Matt Walker asking if it was legit. And to that he happily replied that they had indeed confirmed this in various interviews. So it doesn't get any more official than that, folks. If you've been watching all of the interviews centered around this title, Matt Walker has literally been the mouthpiece. He's answered any and every question gaming journalists have asked him, and I think it was only a matter of time until this question was brought up. Now, I already had a good idea that Devil May Cry 5 would take place after part 2 because Itsano stated that this would be the ending chapter to the Sons of Sparta saga. That's as straightforward as it gets. Not to mention the more noticeable details like Dante's rugged appearance and how he looks like he's riding his bike from the dark depths of hell. As expected, many naysayers shot down the idea because 1, they don't know the timeline, and 2, they simply did not want to accept DMC2 as canon. They used strawman arguments like part 2 never gets brought up by the developers, therefore it never happened, or Dante's personality is too inconsistent with the other versions so it simply does not fit. And my rebuttal is, if we're going to use that excuse, then why the hell is DMC 4 and 5's Dante's personality closer to part 3's Dante than part 1 Dante? Simple, it doesn't matter. The foundation of the series wasn't necessarily laid out as it is now, and it wasn't until the 3rd installment that it really gained its momentum. And of course you're gonna have prudes say that part 2 isn't brought up in any of the other games, but they simply did not pay attention. Because if they did, they'd realize that the game was mentioned in the original console versions of Devil May Cry 4. During the game's installation, it provides a 7-minute slideshow called History of DMC, which gives the player a rundown of Dante's past adventures as well as his future ones. Of course, it gives a lengthy expository description about each title in their original released order, but one of the most interesting things to note is this cryptic description it gives on DMC2's Dante. It reads as so. With age, Dante has become more fearless than ever and has embraced the legacy of his father Sparta, with hope of one day living up to the Dark Knight's legend. The prospect of the resurrection of Argisax launched Dante into the underworld to seal the demon away again, just as his father did before him. It follows that information up by reassuring us that Lucia is still waiting for Dante to return from the underworld. Now, what's important to take away from this information is that 1. It was brought up by Devil May Cry 4 in the DMC history, and 2, it does not confirm that Dante ever made it out of the demon realm. It straight up says that Lucia is patiently waiting for his return. If Devil May Cry 2 did in fact take place before Part 4, they would have stated that he had somehow escaped and was back on a new adventure. But as you can see, it was blatantly stated that he went out like his father by driving straight to hell. He's continuing Sparta's legacy, so reading that makes it seem like it's the conclusion of the Sons of Sparta saga. But as I mentioned earlier, Itsuno said that DMC5 will be the official ending, and I couldn't be any more excited about this news. We finally get to see just how powerful Dante has become because he got a ton of ass pull abilities in Part 2. And his Majin Devil Trigger is quite arguably his most powerful form, probably even more powerful than Sparta himself. So that's definitely something I hope they elaborate on. And this could give us more details on where he got that sick ass bike. Like I've heard theories on how it could be Pandora or the infested demon who wields the power to use vehicles as host. It could potentially be the same bike we saw Dante riding into the underworld. And maybe, just maybe, Lucia can make another appearance. She's literally been the only secondary character in the entire franchise who hasn't returned in any of the sequels, which is a bummer because she's the one who started the alternative character trend in DMC games. Like I could go on, but we have more news to go over. I had recently stated in my Gamescom demo breakdown that this game seems to be borrowing a lot of underpinning elements from the DMC reboot, and how Hideaki Itsuno could have possibly been inspired by Ninja Theory because of how similar the styles ranking system was. And there's this cool slow motion effect when you eliminate the last jobber. I noted the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if DMC played a major influence considering the fact that Itsuno oversaw the game's development. Hell, a handful of the moves from the reboot's Virgil were used for DMC4 Special Edition's Virgil, so why not? Well, a couple days ago we got an interview provided by Game Informer where Itsuno gave an opinion that's quite unpopular with DMC detractors. Apparently he revealed that the development team learned a lot from Ninja Theory, stating, and I quote, "We learned so much from Ninja Theory and DMC. That was a collaboration between Capcom and Ninja Theory. I went to Cambridge once every couple of months to work with those guys, so we learned a lot from them. And you want to talk about stylish? Ninja Theory, those guys are style incarnate, man. What they did with DMC, that art style, those animations, that is real style, you know. So we took a lot of what we learned from that. Even stuff like the kill cams, for instance. We took a lot of that, and having learned that, we tried to implement that into this game as well. So it seems like a lot of fans, including myself, were right in our assumptions on some of the game's mechanics and overall style. DMC Devil May Cry had a heavy emphasis on realism, and it seems like Itsuno's team intends on borrowing things that made that game stand out, which I have to say is the best move they can make. Like, I know DMC gets well-warranted backlash for its poor characterization of Dante, but I think the fans have gone out of their way to unjustly shit on the gameplay. I personally think it's the best Devil May Cry game I've ever played. All of the moves have a sense of weight behind them, from the rebellion slashes to the giant axe slams. Dante has realistic animations. When he slashes forward, he kinda stumbles. And it's all wrapped up in amazing production values. Like, the sound design is the rock star of the game. When you cut something, you really hear it, and the bombastic music and announcer really provoked you to ante it up on your combos. Speaking of combos, you could pull off some insane maneuvers by combining the right devil arms with proper execution. I'm no high-level DMC player, but I was able to pull off some pretty stylish combos.
Bring it in!
So as you can see, the reboot wasn't as bad as the fans made it out to be. Despite its bad sales, Capcom was said to be relatively pleased with how well it came out. And Itsuno, the guy that everybody dubs the king of stylish action, has dared to give his title to Ninja Theory. As a matter of fact, I want to read what he went on to say about the reboot. "We have a lot of friends who love DMC. For me, DMC is one of my favorite DMC games, if not my favorite. And we wanted to make the game in a way that people who enjoyed the game will enjoy the way it controls just as much as they enjoyed DMC. So yeah, Hideaki Itsuno loves the reboot. He's essentially cross-pollinating the elements of what worked for that game and what he's worked on with DMC 3 and 4. So take of that what you will. It's just crazy how we got news back to back on two of Devil May Cry's most controversial figures, and how they basically gained a sense of appreciation from fans who actually saw some of the good in them. I know I've stated this profusely, but given the limited time Itsuno had with DMC2, he was able to transfer and polish some of its features into later entries. And Ninja Theory is a development team worth learning from. They've proven that they can make stylish games like Heavenly Sword and Hellblade. I mean, they have to be an awesome company if they're getting bought out by Microsoft. But with that, I'd like to bring this video to a close. I just gotta say that the enormous outpour of support you guys have given me on these videos continues to blow my mind. I'm so grateful that you would take time out of your day to listen to me ramble about a franchise that I love. And I hope you stay tuned because we still have much more to go over. But anyways, what are your thoughts on this news? Do you like that we're finally getting a proper conclusion to the Sons of Sparta saga? And are you happy that the developers are implementing certain gameplay mechanics from the reboot? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future content. But if you enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it on social media platforms with all your friends and followers. And if you want to support the channel directly, consider donating to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. But anyways, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I will catch you guys later. Peace out.